Okay, it's Monday morning. Amy and I finished the massive rally of the tests yesterday evening in Chester, having started off from Torquay on Thursday evening. So for me, that's 5 days of spending more than 6 hours in the PV 544 each day. So I've put on some time for our PV.
As you will see, hopefully.
So the yellow Mini, that was Matthew Abry and Owen Turner. Owen, who was on the Peking Paris recently, and won the Icelandic Saga, the co-driver of that yellow Mini. But did Tom Trana drive one of these?
Tom Trana won the RAC rally in one of these. Gunnar Anderson was European rally champion in one as well.
Wow! How about that? How about that for a...
Let's have a look over what we've got to sort out now following the event. I confess I was very aggressive on the tests, not always very skilled, although Friday the Scandinavian in me worked. As for Saturday and Sunday, not so much. So let's have a look. We're underneath. Okay, starting at the front here. Now I know we took a big hit on the steering guard, so it's going to be interesting when we cleared all that off to find out what's happened. And there's telltales just here that the two countersunk bolts have actually moved aft, which rather means the whole thing has taken quite a big hit. Otherwise, up at the front here, everything looks good, although I have my suspicions about the steering joints. They felt a little bit loose on the way down the motorway yesterday when I returned home, so I'm probably going to replace both steering rods and the two centre tie rod joints. On the event, our clutch linkage detached itself. You can see up here, there, I've actually used an R-clip. And I used an R-clip out here as well, and that is what parted company. I'm reluctant to get rid of that R-clip there because it's makes life a lot easier when dealing with the clutch linkage, but I have now reverted to a split pin on this arm here in place of the R-clip. So that was a failure. That cost us a few minutes whilst I did clutchless gear changes for about 30 miles. To get home on a transport section. Okay, moving further aft. The exhaust here has taken a couple of hits on the clamp, and you can see this compression here and here, and this clamp has been hit as well. I'm pretty sure the whole unit has moved back along this pipe here by about an inch. Now, notice the way we mount it rigidly front and rear on this expansion pipe on the engine mount here and engine mount here. So it's fairly restricted on what it can do, but end of the day with pretty much 1,100 kilos of motor car behind it, if it hits something here, it's going to move even with the engine mounts. So what has happened back here, now, can you see that? So just here, you can see evidence that the diff was hitting it, and indeed there is also a scar here where the diff has hit it there. Now that wouldn't normally happen, but then if you look back here, you can see evidence that, just as I said a moment ago, the expansion tube has shifted aft by about an inch, placing this on the panhard rod. So clear everything, the whole lot's moved back, and so everything starts fouling. Now equally, come out here, there appears to be a back box missing here, so most of the silencing. Now the back box, again, is suspended independently, effectively, with 2 engine mounts, the other engine mount here that I removed to make it safe. So with that all coming aft, it then puts stress on this welded flange here, so the back box goes across there, and that's where it parted company, at that flange there having been stressed. So, so I'm going to have to get the whole lot of that exhaust back an inch forward and then fit a new back box to it. But pleasingly, unlike night rallying, they didn't exclude us for noise. It's surprisingly civilized. If you're gentle on the throttle, you can make it sound not quite quiet, but actually acceptable. Of course, when you start going full chatter, then it does sound a bit noisy. But we got away with it. We only had 2. It was Sunday morning, regularity 1, that it parted company on a rough section of grass track, and that was that. Okay, what else have we got here? Well, actually, there's very little else down here. Let's just get that down. So, our favourite Yokohama W-Drive winter tyres, brand new at the start of the event on Wednesday, are now down to about 3mm. So really, really I ought to ditch those. 3mm isn't enough to be competitive rallying. And they were superb tyres. We heard many tales from Sunday morning when we were travelling much of the event in light skim of snow on all the roads and ice. And people talking to us about just sliding ahead on bends. We didn't. These W drives are just brilliant tyres. Let's go inside the car. Now, Emma took this out for a test drive on the Tuesday and Wednesday, I think, for it, and said she felt there was some fuel starvation going on that then suddenly seemed to cure itself. Well, on Thursday night, which is the start of the rally, we were out at the race course doing a private land stage, and the first one went brilliantly. We were in fact, we were quickest in class by quite a margin, and then the second one, we were misfiring, fuel starvation. Everything pretty much sorted itself out for Friday and Saturday until Saturday night in Swinnerton, which again is a tough, hard pushing private land section. You're basically on the red line the whole time. We then got fuel starvation on the last 2 controls. Went back into the rest halt at night, limped back in, and it turns out it's not the fuel pumps, it was actually fuses. Now, Peter Banham, who has been terrific help as ever on all these events, Peter is just, his knowledge and ability are just remarkable as a sweep crew. He is a fantastic mechanic. And he heard what I had to report about the fuses and immediately responded, "Why, Rob, are you using fuses on a fuel pump? Do not." And he's quite right. It's a ceramic fuse. These are quite high current loading, and sure enough, it's basically just a dry joint at the fuse. All I had to do was roll the fuses, and everything was perfect. So, however, I'm so tempted now. In a rally car, you don't spend a great deal of time at the red line. Granted, there was a test yesterday on a kart circuit in which we were very difficult choosing whether to go up to second or not, or hold it in first at about just over 7,000 RPM. And that's unusual. Normally we're not holding it like that. We're just hitting red line, changing gear, or hard on the brakes. And therefore I'm very tempted to fit a mechanical pump and keep things simple. My only argument against fitting a mechanical is that, of course, the fuel run then lies very close to the hot cylinder head and therefore increases fuel temperature. In a hot country or a hot day, that's going to put you much closer to fuel vaporization issues. So that's what I don't want to risk. So, well, I'm pondering it at the moment. But at the moment, I'm thinking I'm going to change my fuel pumps to mechanical and get rid of the electricals. Okay, that was one issue. that was one issue, and as I say, on the Thursday night, our clutch linkage let go because of that wretched R-clip that I'd fitted. But this one looked worrying for a brief time, but then we fixed it. Inside the car. Okay, inside the car, on the journey down, what was that? Well over 600 kilometres run from Suffolk down to Torquay. And my fuel gauge decided to stop working, which was mildly irritating. But to be honest, we know on the instrument trip meter that I can run an indicated 400 before I need to refuel. So this was accurate enough for me to work out what fuel I had. So that was kind of fine, and we'll fix that. Amy's side, the nav desk, all worked very well. She wanted really 2 clocks, which is an interesting point. I mean, I suppose I really have got space to put 2 clocks there. I'll discuss that with her. So that was the only thing. And of course, the Pee-wee is always quite tight on space. When you've got a dirty great A4 ring binder with the whole, 4 days of road book on it, as well as your nav bag, as well as, 15 maps, I think, probably, something like that. It all gets a bit cramped in here, but that's a PV. We've got pretty good storage. Over here, we've got a central bit which takes an A4 ring binder and your time card, little bits for other miscellaneous storage like my glasses, our business cards, earplugs for the journey home. But then the really nice one that I love is this one in the door panel here, which perfectly fits the Ordnance Survey maps. That's a nice bit of storage. And of course, our superb navigator's footrest, which we're just delighted by. It's quickly adjustable, it's just 2 bolts and it can slide fore and aft. And if you have different navigators in the car, it's actually robust. Yes, you could say, oh, that's very heavyweight, but those girly things you get from Demon Tweaks really are the most awful footrests. They are just useless, to my mind. Handbrake, that worked well, although I didn't yesterday for some reason. I was hanging on to the handbrake in my turns, whereas the previous days I'd been brilliant on the handbrake. But then I just lost it all yesterday for some reason. It just didn't work. It just went forward in a straight line going slower. And what about down there? So that was what we did just before we came out, was the new wiper motor. And that was gorgeous, absolutely superb. Really worked well, 2 speeds, and swept the glass clear very nicely. So I was delighted with that. So what else was there? That's it really. And our lighting was rubbish. So let's go and have a look at the lighting. So these, in their day, were the choice of most rallyists, the CBE Oscar lamp. We can now get pretty good bulbs for it, much more powerful than were available 40 years ago. However, to be honest, it's still much, these headlights of ours, these CBE headlights, are much better than these lamps here. Now, Kevin Savage last year gave me a tip on the Devil's Own, and he said, try Britax 7-inch, which fit into the CBE bowl. So they still look nice and traditional, but he said much better performance. So we're going to get those. Having said that, we're building up Ludo's 205 GTI ready for Le Jog in a month. That's Land's End to John O'Groats, the other big international rally in the UK at this time of year. And that car will get Pier 80s. I've just got to triple check that they're legal, because we are restricted on the diameter of the lamp. but I'm pretty sure the PR80s are legal, and that's what we'll be fitting to those, because that's what Amy's got on her MX-5 and says they are fantastic with their H4 bulbs. So that needs to change. Right, next I'm going to go out and pressure wash it all, steam clean it, get it ready to for its full inspection. I'll do a quick bit of video to show you around the car outside, just to show you all the mud on it, because it looks kind of cool in a rally sort of way if you like that sort of thing. See you outside in a minute. Just before we get going, do you want to hear that exhaust? Because it sounds kind of cool in some respects. Not how I'd normally like to run a car, but let's just listen to that. Isn't that sweet? Okay, one more thing I want to show you. Emma, if you come around on the driver's side. Okay, this here is another really useful thing. It's just a camelback attached to the roll cage, so we can just grab water on the fly. Now this, on a night section, or indeed a night rally, is an absolute saver. It's much better than drinking Red Bull. You just take a sip or two every half hour or something, just refreshes you totally. Infinitely superior to Red Bull and those other drinks. That's it, there we go. Okay, I'm just going to show you around the car now, see, look at all the mud. Okay, so we hit some big Fords during the event, and hence the amount of muddy water that came in here. One Ford in particular should look very impressive on the videos, because we hit it in second gear and then dropped down to first halfway through it. So we hit it with big force. Felt like there was like green water over the top, not spray, and hence the state of the engine bay. Brilliant, performed fantastically, powerful engine, very torquey. When you want to dab the throttle and break the back end away, it does it beautifully. Okay, let's look around elsewhere. Okay, really it's just a muddy car, but it's kind of fun. There we go. So now it's out with the steam cleaner, and we'll get her looking fresh again, and then start the work on getting her back into rally guys again. Of course, yesterday was Remembrance Day. So we're all sporting our poppies during the whole week. Excellent, thank you. Okay, so that's looking in a condition that we can enjoy working on it. Obviously, really I need to take the wheels off, but I'll do that later and give a good spray under the arches and around the brake gear and the wheel hubs. Now, something I forgot to mention was that we've been fitting Quaife ATBs mainly because they're good value and easy to come by. They're not always quite correct for our cars, but we know how to make them work. Now, to be honest, whilst I'm still confirmed in my opinion that they're brilliant for road use, absolutely superb, because they feel like an open diff, but if you are energetic, they'll lay the power down nicely to both wheels. For rallying, it was just the same as having an open diff. This week it was very obvious that it was just spinning up the inside wheel, and there's no there's no alternative but fitting an LSD, a plate limited slip differential, in these cars. So I'm hoping I've still got the LSD from this car, and if I have, then it's going back in over Christmas, because it's so superior. We would have definitely been a lot better off, and actually would never have lost that 30-minute time penalty on the transport on the first night. So we had a really brilliant rally competitive sections, but we did incur a 30-minute penalty that completely knocked us out of the competition on a transport section where we got stuck. LSD would never have got us stuck. Right, so we're going to get to work on this tonight. I go through that other navigator's pleasure, probably drivers as well, of going through the results in detail and looking to see how well we did on a micro basis, and play that little game of what if we didn't have that 30-minute transport section penalty. Where would we have been? Certainly on Saturday night we would have been third, but let's have a look at that. It's always nice to play. Okay, that's it. I'll try and post those conclusions at the end of my video. That'll be a new technique that I haven't tried yet. Thank you.